Hey, everybody. We are live with the Libertarian National Committee. Of course, my video will freeze as soon as we go live. That is just absolutely the way it always goes. Happy election season. I hope everyone is energized, twisting in agony, having some sort of reaction after last night's presidential debate. Well, good news. There are other candidates and other races out there for you to get excited about. We have a lot of amazing libertarian candidates running across the country, and we want to highlight some of those names to you tonight. Before we do, I want to give you a couple of ideas of things you can do. You can go to lp.org and donate to the Candidate Support Committee. Donations to Candidate Support Committee go to help us get tools. Did you know that the National Libertarian Party provides online courses for our candidates? You can jump on twice a month with our amazing political director, Nathan Fatal. Learn the basics of your ground game, learn how to utilize, mobilize, activate a great volunteer base, learn how to fundraise, learn how to deal with hostile media from our communications director, Brian McWilliams. And we've got a whole bunch of other cool stuff working on. We've also got an amazing program called Voter Gravity. It is a game changer that will help you compete with the R's and D's. It's an app that you can download. It's a program you use on your desktop or laptop computer as well. It digitizes your walk lists. It takes all of the information about the voters in your district and helps you utilize it to the absolute maximum. It is a game changer. We recommend it. Reach out to me if you want to get involved. If you want to get Voter Gravity, you can also email us at votergravity@lp.org. If you are a libertarian candidate, we will get you hooked up and involved. I'm going to bring on our communications director, Brian McWilliams, to help me introduce some of our awesome candidates tonight. Brian is a co-host all of the time, a host and MC. He does all the cool stuff, and he also helps to make me look less bad to the media. Brian, welcome tonight.
I try my damnedest, Angela. Thank you. I appreciate it. It's great to be on here. I'm excited to have these people who are honestly, as we said in our kind of intro for the YouTube and on our Twitter, a lot of these races we're talking about here are actually winnable races. This is an opportunity that we have, which we don't often have as libertarians. And by the way, I did want to add in one more thing. We also are working on, in regards to candidate support and tools, we have the advertisement that people are going to be able to use, plug and play. That should be ready very, very soon. Dan Spots is working on that, of course, from the System is Down pod, who created a lot of advertisements for the New Hampshire party for Spike Cohen. So he is getting those finished up for us. I'm excited to roll those out. But in the meantime, as you said, it's going to be awesome to hear from some of our candidates today. Now, our first candidate I was going to bring on, he's running a little bit late. I'm hoping he'll be able to join us. That's Marco Battaglia. Also, unfortunately, Jordan Rowden had to drop out. So we are going to skip forward to someone who I am very fond of. I actually just spoke with her very recently, and that is the one and the only Erika Kolenich. Now, Erika, welcome to the candidate live stream. I'm going to bring you in first, then bring our other candidates on here. Real quick, just tell people about your race in brief. Tell them where you're running and all that good stuff.
Sure. I'm running in West Virginia in our gubernatorial race. This is my second time running. I ran in 2020, so I'm really excited to come back in 2024. We say our mission in West Virginia this year is to relegate the Democrats to third-party status. So I'm really excited. We think we have a real chance of doing that, and I'm real jazzed up about it.
Awesome. Love it. Our next person coming on in here is Michael White from Arkansas. Michael, welcome to the live stream.
Thanks, Brian. I appreciate it. Glad to be here.
Yeah, well, and now you've got an interesting race. You have, I'd say, maybe of anybody, the best chance of causing an upset, really kicking the apple cart, not only upsetting it, but really kicking it in the ass, sending it down the road, and creating applesauce like in that movie Baby Boom. I'm dating myself by mentioning it, but look it up. It's a thing. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a pretty good summation of what's going on here. My name is Michael White, and I am in the great state of Arkansas. You can call it Arkansas if you want to. That doesn't offend me or anybody here. In fact, we call ourselves Arkansans. Now, if you're out there in the interwebs watching this, you're probably saying, why do I care about someone running for a state legislature seat in the state of Arkansas. I live in so-and-so state, and I don't really care about that, but this is why you might want to care about it, because I could be wrong on this. Maybe Angela could fact check me in real time, but I believe 5 times in history of the party, a libertarian running as a libertarian has occupied a state legislature seat by winning that seat. And this is the 6th time I believe that that is possible. First off, those conditions that make those wins happen, there's like almost like a perfect storm that has to occur. You really kind of need a presidential election year, so you have a high voter turnout. You need, most importantly, a two-way race. Typically, you want one that doesn't involve the major party of your state. So I'm running in a two-way race between a Democrat incumbent in a very, very 50-50 split district. In 2020, the last presidential election race in this district, 17,000 people voted roughly in a two-way race between a Republican and a Democrat, and the Democrat won by 24 votes. That's how tight the demographics are in this district. Don't ask me how this came to an existence. Some of it was work, some of it was luck, but we're happy to be here. So yes, this, I think personally, is maybe the most winnable race for a libertarian at a state legislature level or higher. If you want to learn more about it, mw4liberty.com. And thank you so much for having me, Brian. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, we'll hear a little bit more about these races as we go along, but I want to bring in our other candidate here, who is Bobby Wilson, also from Arkansas, or Arkansas, as you said. Bobby, welcome aboard.
All right. Thanks for having me. Like I said, my name is Bobby Wilson. I live in Bentonville, aka Walmart, Arkansas. So it's District 3. So I'm in a 3-way race. And my chances aren't as good as, say, Michael's, but we have an incumbent who is deeply unpopular, and he was primaried very hard to where he only won. He had to spend a lot of money just to get like 55 to 60% of the vote, and so and I've made a lot of inroads locally with a lot of the people here, and I have yet to meet one person that actually likes our current incumbent. So. From my understanding, I'm going to talk about is that I have a really good opportunity to post big numbers. You know, usually in the state, we're around 3 to 4%. I'm shooting for 10 for this time around. I'm working on building, coalitions and groups to get to know me. And then if I can get to that standpoint this year, then I think in the next election, I'll be able to really put some real damage into it. So that's what's happened here in Walmart, Arkansas. So
beautiful. And by the way, to remind everybody again, we asked everybody to put their donation websites in their names on screen. So if you'd like to go direct to them, please feel free to do that. Feel free to give us some money too. As we said, many tools to develop here, but again, you could go direct to support these candidates. Erika, don't mute that mic. I'm coming back to you. Very polite, though. I appreciate it. So, Erika, tell us more about where you think some opportunity is. I know in your race particularly, you've had some success in the last time we talked, attacking the current governor, attacking some stances that are involving, I think, the energy production in your state. So tell us a little bit more about where you're connecting with people and where you find those opportunities and kind of how you found the opportunities that you want to attack and where people can learn a little bit from you.
Sure. Well, the Republican that we're running against is the incoming or is the current AG. And I think that what people in West Virginia don't like about him is that he's an outsider. And if you've ever been to West Virginia, it's a very close-knit community. And this guy, his name is Patrick Morrissey. He's moved to West Virginia from out of state to win the election. He moved in from New Jersey. And he moved in from, I think, Maryland after that. So he's known from like moving around the United States to try to find a location where it's easy to win an election. And so in West Virginia, people view him as a carpetbagger. And one of the things that, West Virginia has a real problem with is opioids. We're known for having one of the highest overdose rates, per capita in the United States. And because he's the current sitting attorney general, when we settled our recent class action against Big Pharma, people thought that he sold out and that he didn't, settle those cases for high enough, which is really interesting because he's a former Big Pharma lobbyist. So he takes a lot of heat for that. He also takes a lot of heat, he and the Republican supermajority, for, getting out there and rallying for coal. West Virginia has always been a big coal mining state and big into fossil fuels. They were actually very, very Democratic until Obama was president, and we kind of they started the war on fossil fuels in West Virginia, and then we swung very red. But what they're doing in West Virginia is very interesting, because they're out there holding the Friends of Coal, literally it says Friends of Coal banner. And then what they're doing is they're taking the excise tax from coal and fossil fuels, and they're funding green energy businesses to come into West Virginia. And people are recognizing things like that. Very recently, and you guys will love this, very recently, our current sitting governor, who's outgoing, he's not running again, who's the Republican, proposed a further reduction in the personal income tax. And the Republican candidate said, wait, let's not move too quickly. We don't want to be reckless. We shouldn't reduce the personal income tax too quickly. And that was in the headlines this morning. So he's just not resonating with people. People don't trust him. I mean, he is the Donald Trump endorsed candidate, and we're in Trump country, but he just doesn't, in terms of the policies that he's execute based on the values of West Virginia people, and folks don't trust him. And when he comes in as an outsider and then he doesn't act in a way that is in the best interest of the West Virginia people, folks really see that, and they really notice that, and they're just not willing to put their trust in him enough to vote for him. He was in a very hotly contested primary, and he didn't break 50% in that primary. It was really divided. So there are a lot of people in the Republican primary that are looking a different way to go, and we've picked up a lot of support from folks that supported other candidates in the Republican primary. So that's been really, really great for us. And, the Democratic Party in West Virginia is dying. Once Joe Manchin switched to an independent, he was basically the de facto leader of the West Virginia Democratic Party. As soon as he said goodbye to the Democrats, it was like the final nail in the Democratic coffin in West Virginia. And
he's not running again, is he? I think he said he's done.
No, he's out.
He's done.
Thank you, Joe Manchin.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's done. And so a lot of those former, coal and steel union, workers that were holding on to their Democratic tickets are looking for another place to go. And we're meeting them along the campaign trail, and they're finding their home in the Libertarian Party. And it's been really, 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 really great for us. And, I think even some of the more, center moderate Democrats that felt that the party has left them, and quite literally left them, and, has gone too far left, they're really looking for a home, and they're looking for a candidate that they feel just represents their West Virginia values, not right, not left, just free West Virginia, that wild and wonderful free that everybody thinks of West Virginia as. They're looking for that candidate, and they're really finding that in our party. So we're picking up those votes. The Democratic candidate isn't even running. He's not going out to events. He's not going to meet the people. He's not well known. He's not well funded. We have an unpopular Democrat. So we're doing really well. We're really excited.
That's fantastic.
I think I see an interesting rivalry happening. It seems like West Virginia and Arkansas are rivaling the Wyoming, Montana liberty vibes. I'm trying to figure out which is the freer part of the country right now.
Well, I guess if I'm elected, then West Virginia wins.
There you go.
By the way,
There you
feel
go.
free, guys. We don't have
Yeah.
to, we could be a little bit more informal here. Free for you to jump in and add some comments. Don't worry, we don't have to strictly go round robin here.
I was hoping Erika
So-
was going to hit that one. It was set up really nice for you. So yeah.
Well, clearly she's not taking the bait. Come on, all right, Michael, Bobby, step in, lay down the timber here. Where's the Libertarian Party supposed to be? Where's their strength at?
Bobby, why don't you go ahead and talk about your race for a second?
Okay. So like my thing, I run into I have a lot of similar things with Erika is, so the state Democratic Party is virtually bankrupt. It's pretty hilarious. Like you look at the Arkansas, we're consistently have the second most money of any party in the state because the Democratic Party is just in debt all the time, and they don't actually, they don't put up any runs to do anything. Like we had. And, when in 2020 in the Senate race, they didn't have a Senate candidate. All right. So we had a Libertarian run head to head against Tom Cotton. And he got something like 41% of the vote. And it was just kind of just one of those things where they're just a complete other joke. And then you look at the Republican Party in Arkansas is in general, and because, I'm in a red town. I do jujitsu. So a lot of my friends are very red. They're Republican, very conservative.
Red, black, and blue as well, I presume, after the jujitsu.
Yeah, pretty much. and there's a big disconnect between the Washington, D.C. Republicans and then the local, state Republicans. I mean, they're all, they're all socialists anyway. They don't like it when I tell them that, but it's true, but there is a big difference between them on that. And as with many of the Deep South that has, a lot of red in it, they have some of the worst Republicans, that are in the national scene. And, Cotton's one of those. Our governor, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, she's another nationalist. We had Asa Hutchinson. He was Department of Justice guy, or ATF guy. I mean, it was just all these guys are just embedded in the national, conglomerate. Yeah. And people aren't happy. So in Northwest Arkansas, like I said, I joke about it. This is where Walmart's at, right? So Walmart makes, if you want to sell things in Walmart, you have to open up an office in Northwest Arkansas because they don't actually do the buying. They make you do the buying. And there's all these certain things, and they want to have somebody personally to talk to. So it's one of those things where the massive growth in Fayetteville, Bentonville area has just been crazy. I'm in construction. I do real estate construction, and we haven't slowed down at all. So when the pandemic hit, I was working an easy 40 hours. And then when the pandemic hit, everybody just built crazy because, we were open as a state during the pandemic. We maybe shut down
10 minutes,
2
maybe
months.
What, half a minute? It was
2 months, and my life didn't change. My wife's life changed, but my life didn't change. And so a lot of people were moving here and all that. And so it's one of those things where the culture's changing and all those, we're getting a lot more, transplants. And it's, like I said, it's one of those things where the National Party they're just terrible. So I'm much more active locally. I go to the county meetings. I'm really big in the Battaglia style of network state type of thinking. And he had this concept of dashboards. So I've been working on creating a dashboard to kind of really explain to people, what's actually going on, because I can't really argue about schools, how much school funding is going on or how much teachers should be paid if they don't actually know the numbers. Mm-hmm. Whereas I do, mm-hmm. and I share those with people. So, for example, in Bentonville Public Schools, they spend roughly about, I want to say $11,000 per student. All right. And then you go to Fayetteville schools, it's about 13,000. Fort Smith, it's about 11,000. And so these are all things to where if they're seeing 25, 30 kids per class, and they're seeing, wait a minute, that's 350 grand per class. There feels like there should be money for the teachers.
Right. Is it just out of curiosity? Is it a similar situation where all that money is just being kind of wasted on administrative staff? I mean, I know in
Absolutely.
California, that's all that's been happening is DEI, ESG hires to support the top level people, so they don't have to do much work. And yeah, the teachers haven't really gotten anything.
It's okay. So be honest, it's kind of unclear on that from my standpoint because I just look at the school board and they just lump they don't really break down teachers versus aides versus administration. You have to go into each individual school, which I mean, like they're very thorough on it. It wouldn't surprise me though. I mean, like the teachers make up about 50 to 60% of the budget though, or not the teachers, the staff makes up about 50 to 60% of the budget. But like it's one of those things where like in my area, because housing's so expensive, they have a hard time recruiting teachers from outside of the area.
Right.
So if they hire somebody from outside of the area, then they can't come in. But as we saw during the pandemic, if somebody just had a bachelor's degree, they turned out that they were actually just as good at teachers as everybody else, and then they could go through on-school training, so we could hire people that lived here. But yes, so like something like that. So I just bring up a lot of stats. I bring up a lot of like what the government spends their money on, because a lot of people don't know like what the county government does, what the city government does, what the state government does. This is this huge Gordian knot that I have been spending probably my last 2 years trying to untangle and help the voter. Because I mean, one of the things that I also feel like that libertarians in general, I do think we have the best arguments, and I do think we win the arguments, but we don't win the election. So there's something that's a disconnect there. So I'm looking to try to provide a service to my constituents, to the people in the local people in my area. I go to the county meetings. I go to some of these other, conservative group meetings. If there were more, I've gone to a couple of Democratic ones too, but they're pretty like anti-rent and they're really they're actual communists, and on that standpoint, I don't really have much overlap. But I do talk to them, and so it's just one of those things where I just try to like let them know what's going on in local government. Like right now we're heading into budget season, so this will be my busy time of year, and this is where I can make the impact locally, and we can like affect the budget. This is where they don't really change much during the year. It's just kind of, they just approve, oh, this guy needs to get a raise. They're like, okay, gets a raise. Oh, we need to get rid of this computer. This truck blew up, so we need to buy another one. I mean, like that's kind of what it is during the year. But the budget, this next 3 months is kind of a busy process on that. So I keep people up to date on that. I've started to, like, anybody that we get their email on, my kind of sell to get on our email list is that I will let you know who are your elected officials, because it's not clear, right? There's no real easy way. I mean, it seems like Google or Facebook could do this, but they don't, right? So I was like, okay, well, this is a opportunity for us to come in. So I'm trying to provide services for people like that, and that's how I've been, helping people in my area, and kind of like spreading the Libertarian Party, and that we're actually doing things, and we're here to make your life better, not just
exactly.
Throw me.
Exactly. Make your life. We're here to make your life better, right? I mean, that's something that gets libertarian philosophy of attacking the government, is that we will always say we can take something away and rarely say no, but we're going to make it better by replacing with this, or it's going to be better because it's going to be more effective for you. It's going to ensure your savings, ensure your schools, whatever it might be. So yeah, very good. Michael, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, Arkansas is an interesting place. I'll put it that way. And Bobby sort of, danced around it. But the truth is, the major party in our state, the Republican Party of Arkansas, there's plenty of great people in it. It's bifurcated. Like many major parties in states where they kind of dominate the political scene, there's like really two parties in one party. And so there's already this sort of infighting that's happening, and that's kind of been growing over the years, really ever since the same timeline of West Virginia, roughly sometime during the Obama years, during, again, the beginning of the attack on fossil fuels, sort of the quote unquote working man. Arkansas went from 140 years of Democrat sort of rule to and flipped very, very red. And there's obviously growing pains with that. There's some ideological combat that sort of happens. You have people that claim to be Republicans. Maybe they don't really believe in limited government or those kind of things. So, yeah, it's an interesting place. But more specifically, again, this race that I'm in, when you're running this is my second campaign. I ran for U.S. Congress in 2022. I ran in a messaging race. I had no preconceived notions of winning. I ran because I got to be in the televised debate. That's why I ran. My party chair said, you'll get to be on TV and you can speak truth to power. And I said, sign me up. And so that's what I did. And it was a lot of fun. But when you're running a race that's winnable, it's incredibly different. There's a lot more expected of you. I don't get any off days right now. I'm doing this full time. I'm out, literally sun up to sundown, either knocking on doors, putting up signs, attending events, trying to coax donors, whatever it is. And it's just a whole different, speed of things. And what you come to realize too, also, is we talk about maybe why libertarians don't win. Yeah. There's sort of a brand problem. I think that a lot of people don't really know what that means to be a libertarian. I mean, we've been doing this now for 50 years and there's still a lot of questions. I've knocked on around, between myself and my volunteers, we've knocked on around 3,000 doors in the district since February. And I've probably had personal conversations with about 1,000 people in my district. And the number one question is like, well, what is a libertarian, right? That's sort of the number one thing. And depending on who the person is and their political background is kind of determines how you might answer that. But there is this sort of hope in the asking, like, please be something different and better. Almost the universal sort of theme, whether it is a Democrat voter or a Republican voter, is that they're hungry for something different, something that feels unique. Because the truth is that statism and collectivism present in both parties has its ill-gotten gains that have affected everything. And so they feel that and they know it. I have at the beginning of my neighborhood, a woman has a sign in my yard, one of my signs in her yard. She's a registered Democrat voter. Mm-hmm. I almost passed up kind of when I began knocking on doors. I was like, I'm just going to stick to this. And that quickly just changed. I need to knock on everybody's, right? And so those conversations are really interesting. And yeah, I mean, and I have a number of registered Democrats who have my sign. Of course, many registered Republicans. The vast majority of Arkansans, though, however, are registered optional. So about 80%, which makes campaigning difficult because your data is more of a guess than it is on like an absolute. We've raised around $22,000 to date for this campaign, which I'm pretty proud of considering the size of it. You quickly also learn that there's this donor ecosystem that the major parties have essentially had in place for over 100 years. It doesn't exist for us. And so all of our donations come from small donations, individuals, $25, $50, $100 have propelled this campaign forward. My background is in enterprise and business. I operated Verizon wireless stores throughout the southeast part of the country, and I sort of made my business grow by doing more with less and seeing value where other people didn't see value. And so that this kind of comes natural to me to do more with less. I don't need to raise as much as my Democrat opponent. But here's the most interesting thing that I can say, too, about this election. You can judge a lot by what people say, but you really should judge by what they do, right? And I'm with Bobby on this one. The money is where, the real facts are. Numbers and spreadsheets typically don't lie. The story there is just for you to coax out of it. My Democrat opponent was going to be completely unopposed. Because of the way that we worked on our ballot access bill that we sued the state of Arkansas in 2020. They put us provisionally on the ballot in 2022. In 2023, the legislature meets and they're going to give us a new ballot access bill. And we raised in committee multiple times, hey, look, you've taken the bill we kind of want and you've changed it a little bit. And the way you've changed it means that we'll be filing our candidates after your primaries are closed. Is that really what you want? And of course, nobody paid attention. Nobody listened, which is pretty typical in these committees of any legislation, really. And so when the registration ended for Republicans and Democrats, filing did, in November of last year. And between my wife and I had said, look, if a Republican does not file, that will be my sign to go ahead and run in this election. And so she didn't think she had any challenger. And so she was completely MIA. She's not posting on X. She's not posting on Facebook. She's not attending anything. There's no media appearances. She is gone. She's walking in unchallenged into the state legislature for her third term. And so we filed February 26th. She must find out somewhere around March 7th, because on that day, she posts her first "I'm back" post to everyone in my district. And she says, here, we're going to run to win it, all this kind of stuff. We must keep anti-government extremists away from the state capitol. And so we made some T-shirts that had my face with the founding fathers, said anti-government extremist. We raised about $1,000 for that.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, so and she stopped mentioning us after that. I think someone said, "Hey, look, don't give this guy any attention. Maybe you can sail on and win if he stays under the radar." She's on track to raise around $100,000 for a state legislature seat.
That's a lot.
You don't raise that kind of money, especially from a party that doesn't have a ton of money in this state, unless you are threatened. They know that we can win. They absolutely 100% know we can win, and they're hoping that the voters just don't hear about us. So the local media, that is essentially kind of controlled by the left in many ways, does its best not to talk about us. They don't want to pick up our press releases, and that's kind of just been the theme of this. And so as we've become more visual, we've now got there's about 150 of these in neighborhoods right now. We hope to have around 300 by the time the early voting starts in October. We got big signs out too. Of course, we're trying to raise money for our first mailer. That's what I'd hope you can give us money for. We needed to raise $6,000 in September to fund that. We raised around $3,000, give or take. So we're still about $3,000 short. So please visit mw4liberty.com/donate.
Yeah, please. And by the way, Michael, just really quick, I actually want people to talk about specifically what they want. I think it's a good idea. I mean, look, like we were saying, stats and numbers are great. I think it's nice to give people an idea of like, hey, where's my money going towards? What do you need? How can I help you specifically to succeed? So yeah, I think that's great. Yeah. So just real quick again. So what do you want to use it for? So signs.
This is for our first mailer. This is our first mailer. Yes, our first mailer. So we have a pretty dense data budget that we spend on. Voter Gravity is a great software and a great tool. People need to grab it, do it. For our race, there was some other tools that were available that we thought might be more beneficial, just because of the way voter registrations are in Arkansas. Again, we don't have a good idea on a lot of these people. It's an educated guess as to how they lean politically. So we have some some pretty expensive tools in that regard. Of course, signage is very expensive. Of course, I mean, and then that's the big one, is going to be for our text messaging throughout voting. There's 14 days of early voting in Arkansas. That, of course, benefits incumbents because it takes a lot of consistent, constant communication during those 2 weeks. And so you're really going 100 miles an hour for those 2 weeks. And so, yes, our first mailer is going to run around $6,000. That's what it's going to run. And that the first one will be EDDM. We're going to hit everybody. It's probably the most effective use of the money that we have for that first one. And I know from running a previous campaign that all of a sudden our donations will come in right before the election. And so it's like right when you don't need it and you can't plan for anything. Yeah. And so we're just trying to finish that out. And so, yes, if we could raise around $3,000 between today and today, that would be really good. We'd be on track for what we need for a win number. Yeah.
Let me ask you a couple of questions, especially for the benefit of some of our other candidates who might be watching. How much time do you spend making fundraising calls?
Not enough. Not enough because I can only do one thing at one time.
Yeah.
Right. And so, knocking on doors takes a lot of time. Meeting with voters takes a lot of time. No, I don't spend nearly enough time making fundraising calls. And
how about door knocking?
At least 2 or 3 hours every single day. Some days it's 8 hours, depending on
that's a lot.
What the weather's like. Of course, the end of summer was brutal. That probably contracted to maybe 1 hour, and then some days not at all. But as the weather's getting better, it's increasing more and more. You can always see I kind of always got a little bit of a sunburn lately because I'm always out knocking on doors.
And what about things like Rotary Club? Have you attended anything like that locally? I find that a lot of libertarians are like, I'm going to run for office. I'm like, great, you should get elected in your community. And they're like, I posted on the internet. And I'm like, I meant the community where the people vote,
Yeah, I think that's, those things beget other things. I've been invited to, I started me sort of sourcing those sort of groups to talk to. And then that became, hey, you should come talk at our thing, My calendar from now until election day pretty much has something every couple of days where I'm meeting with some group. I'm sure there's a couple Rotary clubs in there. And that's always really fun because you're right there and you get to answer fun questions. But let's be quite honest. What the truth is most voters in America are focused on one race and one race only.
Yep.
And I would say 95 to 96%, I would give it a huge number, And so the down ballot race becomes a point of attention for many, many people the second they walk in the voting booth. The challenge for every down ballot candidate is to try to make yourself important enough to be considered at least 5 minutes before the voting booth, or 10 minutes before the voting booth, or a day before the voting booth. And so that's why we spend so much time just knocking on doors, getting to know people personally. Here we are with the intention of trying to get every single person at least 4 or 5 touches before Election Day.
Nice.
Erika, how about you? What specifically are you looking for funding for in your race?
I am looking for money to run my TV commercials. So West Virginia is a very rural state, and we've been out there, like Michael, meeting people. We've been doing it at fairs and festivals and walking in small towns, but it's a lot of ground to cover. And a lot of people in West Virginia are homebodies and they stay at home. So we've got some great TV commercials that we've done. Dan Smotz has helped us. So you mentioned Dan earlier. Shout out to
There
Dan.
you go.
So we have those done. They're great. We think they're great messaging, and we need about $30,000 to finish out rounding our budget to run those between now and Election Day.
That is awesome. I'm excited to hear that you've got Dan Smott's videos. So everybody needs to go and donate to these campaigns. I think that's really important. We need to support our candidates. Another thing that I think people could do. So let's say you're broke, stingy, you've made terrible life choices, and you're in a cardboard box on the side of the road, but you still have a phone. Right. You can do, as long as you're not crying all day long because you're really sad. You can do phone banking for our candidates, and you can do text banking too. And I think that that's something that's going to be really important in the home stretch between now and then. So reach out to them through their websites, but also, feel free to reach out to the national party. We'll make sure to get you connected. It's really, really important that we do get out the vote. What else has been going on with your campaigns, guys? Have you had any scary, embarrassing, nails on chalkboard stories? Have you encountered any crazed voters when you've been door knocking?
I got one stalker, but I've now shut him out of my life. So that's the only scary story I have. Bobby, you got any stalkers out there yet in Bentonville?
No, I did at the Pride Fest. I did have somebody give me their number.
All right, man. Hey, man, that's a compliment, Bobby. Hey, go back home to wife and tell her you're a hot commodity, man.
I've always been appreciative. It's one of those funny jokes I've had in my lifetime. I don't know what it is, but I've had more men, hit on me than women. So I've always had to be the, as a straight man. It's kind of disappointing, but I'll take the flattery every time.
There you go.
Do you guys find that when you're out there meeting people, there's a certain segment of the population that the first thing that they ask you is who you're voting for president, and that's the only thing they want to talk to you about? It doesn't matter what any of your other policies are or who you are, that they say, who are you voting for president?
Right. There's always this sort of purity test. Yeah, for sure. I mean, especially when you don't have the letter behind your name they're expecting. Mm-hmm. I tend to answer that and say, well, who are you voting for and why? And tell me what's important about that. And we tend to talk about the issues again and say, see, and also it makes, hey, West Virginia, the same as Arkansas. Yeah. We're not going to determine the presidential, election. Right. Our states, we know where they're going to go. We know who they're going to vote for. So, I could vote for anybody and it's not going to matter. We're going for Trump, and that's what I know West Virginia will as well. And oh, by the way, I promise I'm not related to Jesco White or any of the wonderful wild whites of Boone County. So,
but I have my fingers crossed that you were.
Yeah, as much as I would love to claim that. No, I'm not. I'm a big fan of The Dancing Outlaw, though. I remember seeing that documentary years and years ago. So, yeah.
So I can tell you something interesting that I'm doing with my campaign that has been wildly helpful. Is that, one of my themes is deregulation, obviously. And one heavily regulated industry in West Virginia is breweries. And breweries are great for West Virginia tourism. So I've been doing a brewery tour which has been amazing because it's incredibly fun and everybody in the brewery always wants to talk. And they think it's amazing that somebody that's running for governor is in the brewery, like having a beer and talking to them about issues. It's been wildly successful. People love it. So
that does sound really fun. That sounds
Yeah.
like a good way to spend your time.
Well, and I
it's
think
been
also,
nice.
like we're talking about getting donations, there's a reason why they give you champagne when you're going shopping. You know, similar concept. Get them a little drunk. They open the wallets.
Yeah.
It's never a bad idea.
This is true.
So I
Yeah.
apologize. I had to drop off for a minute there. I lost all my connections. Sorry, Angela. So where do you want me to pick up with a new question, or did you guys leave something off?
Yeah,
I apologize.
let's pick up with a new question. Actually, also, how's your volunteer pool looking? I think that's a good question to ask. A lot of candidates are watching. We're getting some little comments here and there from candidates, and I think they probably are. A lot of people in the Libertarian Party, it's like we're a little tight on volunteers. What's it like to run a competitive campaign?
I currently have 6 volunteers.
All right.
And my district is 30,000 people, again, about 15,000 voters. We could always use more. And the thing about volunteers is you're not paying them, so you can't be too demanding, right? So we try to just basically say what we're doing and then please come help. But they, as we've gotten closer and you work with them more, they get more excited to work with you. And so we'd like to have, obviously another 6 or even another 6 than that. But
Absolutely.
yeah, I mean, volunteers make it fun. I mean, not going in neighborhoods and knocking on doors is always fun if you're with somebody. It's kind of a drag if you're just keeping yourself company, between door to door. So yeah.
What about issues? Are there particular issues that are like what's coming up when you talk to people right now? I watched this like wild documentary on the Duggars a couple weeks ago, and I was like, I feel like
that's Bobby's area of
That's
the
my
state.
area.
Yeah,
I was like, I feel like this is probably not at the forefront of people's minds, but maybe there's a little Duggar mania still going on.
No, not really. They're all kind of grown up now. So it's that's a 2018, 2016.
it's pretty old. Yeah.
I mean, like one of the Duggars like ran for office and then but it didn't go well, so they quickly found somebody to win the primary.
Yeah, didn't he drop? He was gonna run and then dropped out, right?
Yeah,
he ran for state senate up there, I think.
I thought he got elected. I thought the dad got elected once. Did he not?
That would have been a while ago. That would have been a while ago.
Long while ago. Well, that documentary would have us believe that the religious right is right on the cusp of taking over America. Libs of TikTok, wrong. So I just thought I'd check in, and see what's actually going on.
It gets wild out there in the sticks in
Arkansas. On the topics that I've been having good argument or I guess headway with is I kind of think of it as like when I talk about rights, I kind of treat it more as like meta rights.
Yeah.
There's like a scaffolding that supports rights that a lot of people they don't really think about. So when I talk to Democrats, and of course they just in general, I mean, I know it's not completely like that, but it's primarily abortion is their main issue. And I talked to them about the surveillance state and the Fourth Amendment. In reality, if you listen to enough Michael Bolden, you learn that the Fourth Amendment, General Warrants was kind of the reason for the revolution, right? So in aspects of how we can, a libertarian world, even if, the area locally is, not pro-abortion, they're very anti-abortion, with, having financial privacy. Because right now the banks spy on you for the government. They talk about one of the things that's going on right now is having the FDA banning, was it the mist something, whatever the abortion drug is, from being able to go in the mail. And I'm like, that is completely executive overreach. And if that's something they want to make illegal, that needs to be done legislatively. So, I mean, so these are things that I'm finding that it's like because like the way the Democrats talk about like rights is it's like the government gives them to, we're going to pass a law or I'll write an executive order. And I'm like, well, no, we need to actually have a more encompassing, use technology, have our, local support, and then have, the government, write laws that, help support, the rights, not actually be the foundation of said rights. And I have found that gets me very far with Democrats.
Nice.
And it's in a way to where, because I mean, just be honest, I actually don't care. It's not, abortion is not an issue that animates me one way or the other. I think technologically we're going to get to a point to where women will look on their watch and know that they're ovulating and like, oh, I don't want to get pregnant, and then they'll just like win it from and then looking with the whole I mean Walter Block evictionism and all these things with incubators. It's the ability to allow a fetus to live is getting further and closer to conception. So I think this is a thing that technology is going to solve a lot faster than people realize, but we're still going to be left with a surveillance state that's just tracking everything we do if we don't do something about it. And so in my area to where we have I'm in a 3-person race, and they want to support their candidate who is going to try to like enshrine Roe into some national law.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, well, if you don't actually deal with the financial privacy, and if you don't deal with any type of protection of the First Amendment, this is not going to happen. And so I'm getting a lot of like where I've had a lot of people say, that makes a lot of sense. So those are like, that's been kind of like my big breakthrough that I've had recently with talking to Democrats in my area. So
it seems like in the South, when states flipped blue to red, they continued to really hold like government union jobs, government contracts. Like there's still a lot of government money tied up. They just got a little more like pro-gun.
Yeah, I mean, most of us are vassal states.
Yeah.
We receive more in federal money than we pay out, and so
100%.
we can rally for the word independence and freedom and liberty. But the truth is tomorrow, if the federal government says, if you don't ban assault weapons because we've declared gun violence a health emergency, you can no longer participate in Medicare at your medical facilities. Every single one of the conservatives would totally give up. Yeah.
How do we get states that are so like independent, liberty minded out of this mess? Because
we have to grow an independent generation. That's really, we got here generationally. It's gonna education, Angela, is the last place that states have where I think it's economically viable for them to begin to make moves that get them outside from under the thumb of the federal government. Medical is most state health agencies and most state facilities and hospitals around America would not survive if they can't participate in Medicare and Medicaid. CMS made that clear with the vaccine mandate back during those things. But education, we have the federal government with ESSA telling us how to bake the cake. So we spend 100% of our time chasing 10 to 15% of our dollars in Title I funds, adhering to these standards. And I think we have to be brave enough to say, no, we're going to start baking our own cake in our own way, and say to hell with Title I funds, and begin to actually educate an independent generation that is economically viable and not financially dependent on the federal government. And that obviously happens with less government involved in education too, more choices for people, parents, and for what's good for their future.
How about West Virginia? Yeah, go ahead, Bobby.
In my neck of the woods, like I said, I'm in Walmart country. So a lot of our, like, we have the Crystal Bridges Museum, which is just wonderful, and they like have all these like mountain biking trails where Bentonville claims to be the mountain biking capital of the world. I think they just declared it. I don't think, but that's all privately funded, or at least like 80% privately funded from the Walmart Foundation. Like, there's not a lot of government funds going into a lot of the stuff that they're doing. So we're already in an area that, even though I'm happy, I can't get them to turn down any federal money. It's one of those things to where, like, I think it's going to solve itself. I think the government's out of money. I mean, like, I know they're going to, it's like every time that, like, I don't know. My thing is when they lower interest rates, inflation is going to go back up. Like, I don't think they can. I think the cat's out of the bag. The repo rates are just like, they're just spiking. They've been spiking more for the last like 3 months than they have in like the last 4 years. So I just don't think they can maintain 7 trillion in spending. And so you look at all of the ARP funds, the infrastructure, Green New Deal, whatever, Inflation Reduction Act. I mean, that money's pretty much done. They're gonna try to do something, but I don't see how I don't see how they can continue it much more than maybe 2 more years of this. So it's gonna happen. So I'm just, being that consistent voice and saying, hey, we need to be like Joseph in Egypt and, plan for 7 years of really rough times. And that's just kind of where it's at. I mean, like it's in, and like I said, I mean, what is it? New Hampshire ran into that problem when the local school board turned down the funds, and then everybody came in and wanted to like cut their heads off. So nobody wants to turn away free money. They're like, they've already stolen it from us. Let's just get as much as we can. So
I'm interested, Erika, which of our states is more of a vassal state? I wonder if we have 1 in 3 Arkansans receives Medicaid currently. That's a terrible statistic. I mean, what does it kind of look where you are?
I don't know what the statistic is in terms of
Sure, yeah,
exactly what you're talking about, but I'm going to guarantee you that overall West Virginia beats Arkansas.
Well, I mean, they just totally took your economy away and left everybody there. I mean, yeah.
It has to. I mean, here's what I can tell you. 60% of kids in West Virginia are being raised by somebody other than their parents.
Wow.
Which means they're getting government benefits.
That is savage. That is terrible.
It's terrible. Our workforce rate is less than half. Our active workforce participants. There's no way. West Virginia has to blow you out of the water.
Yeah, that's golly.
What employs people? What's like the biggest employer you think in West Virginia?
The state government.
Yeah. That's the problem.
The state government, and then the second highest is West Virginia University Medicine.
How do we kill that? I mean, I would think that deregulation, like radical deregulation, would help with free market job creation, but I don't really know what the industry, like what are the main industries over there? Like I live in Austin, Texas. We've got Tesla. Yay, Tesla. That's.
Yeah. I mean, it really has been, oil and gas and coal. Yeah. And I mean, to a large extent, it still is. Medical services, they're really trying to move away from that. We've done really well the past few years since COVID. Some good things came from COVID. People learned that they could work remotely. So tourism in West Virginia has really increased because we have a lot of people that will come stay here, for 2 or 3 weeks on long extended stay vacations. So the tourism industry has really risen. Lumber, wood products, we do very well with, but it's mostly natural resources. And the problem is that our state government lives by the playbook where they try to attract. Angela, you mentioned Tesla. That's what our state government tries to do. It's like the same worn out old story where, they'll make an announcement. Oh, yay, everybody. The state government has made a deal with Amazon and they're going to open up a facility in Wyoming County, and the state's making a $10 million investment and it's going to bring 300 jobs.
Yay.
You don't hear anything about it on the news for another year. And then you say, wait, what happened? And you type it into Google. Oh, it never happened. Or they made an investment and, Amazon never came. Tesla never came, right down your industry. There was a huge announcement a few years ago, Richard Branson's Hyperloop was going to build their R&D facility in Tucker County, West Virginia. And the state government was going to make this huge investment. Never happened. It was just on the news the other day that I think it was a $2.5 million investment that the state made in an electric boat company redoing a facility went under. I think it only brought 10 jobs. 10
Yeah.
Because West Virginia is so close to the coast, right? I mean, that's
Brilliant.
what. Yeah.
It was a pontoon boat.
But, and see, and Erika, that's where I
them.
think that the education thing is like the opportunity for career technical education is sort of a circular economy that sort of spirals up. Industry wants to bring jobs to places that have skilled labor. And one thing we're running out of in America is skilled production labor, right?
Yeah.
And so, we have tons of DOE property in Arkansas. I guarantee you West Virginia does too. I know that there's an economic incentive for job placements and job recruitment into fields like pipe fitting, welding, these sort of things. I mean, just imagine if Virginia said tomorrow, to hell with the K through 12 program. At 9, 10, if you want to start learning how to weld, we're going to teach you how to weld. You'll leave at 18 and you'll make $43 an hour. And oh, by the way, SpaceX is bringing its new facility here because it needs good welders. And we have, Boone County, Virginia is graduating 500, every year. But we're stuck in this mediocrity thing. Like, it's absolutely insane what we're doing in states like Arkansas and West Virginia.
Yeah.
Government bad.
Yeah, absolutely, Angela. Yeah.
And it's tough, in a state where that many people are employed by the government, have government benefits, to sell to them, hey, I want to burn it all down.
Yeah.
It's really
I feel
hard.
I feel like this is something where, as libertarians, we need to really refine our argument. The way that I think about it when I think about welfare subsidies and handouts is it's very limiting. So like in LA, for example, if you have the luxury of getting into affordable housing, if you make more than $900 a month, you are kicked out. But you get $900. And so when I think about subsidies and jobs, I just think about like there's a cap on your worth. And you'll never pass that cap, and you'll never have the opportunity to fully realize your potential. And it's the same with states and even like local economies. Like if you're willing to take a risk and break free of the chains of government and regulatory capture, you could do something really incredible and profound. You could make somewhere like LA be completely irrelevant and a total joke when it comes to industry. But we've got to have people like willing to embrace risk, and achieve their best potential.
I just say, Erika, that, it's not about ending welfare today. It's about growing a tomorrow where we don't need it.
Yeah.
And because through attrition and growth, I think that we can get our way out of it.
Just making it irrelevant. Well, guys, we're wrapping up. Let's give some final plugs. I want to hear about your websites. I want to hear your best donation pitch. We want everybody look at those websites and send them some dollars. Erika, let's start with you.
Sure. Well, my donation site is nowisthetimewv.com. It's a really easy one. I need $30,000 in the next 30 days to get my commercials into the homes of at least 200,000 West Virginians that I need to come out and vote for me in November so I can relegate the Democrats to third-party status in West Virginia. So please go to nowisthetimewv and donate today.
Thank you. Bobby, let's jump down to you.
So my website is bobbyforcongress.com. My campaign is much more smaller scale on these. So if you do have limited funds, I would recommend either one of those. I'm obviously, being a Arkansas guy, I'm Michael White. I think we can get him in there. My campaign, I'm self-funded. I'm paying for the events I go to, driving everywhere, and I'm like using a lot of tools to whereas like I do like a digital card as opposed to printing cards, because I get business cards and nobody looks at them. So, but that's mine. So, like I said, it's one of those things. Whereas I think if you have small funds, I would choose either Erika or Michael over me on this. So.
I'll tell everybody to donate. Donate to Bobby's campaign too. If you've got $50, how about 20, 20, 10?
I'll get the 10. I'm totally cool with that, Angela. That's fun.
All right.
Like I said, we'll make less work. We'll make it work.
Michael, take it away.
Yeah, sure. So, again, my name is Michael White. I'm running for state representative here in West Little Rock. And again, many of you watching this, in fact, probably 99.9% of you watching this do not live in West Little Rock. And probably 99% of you do not live in Arkansas. And so you're likely saying, Michael, why do I care about your election? This is, in my opinion, the most winnable race for a libertarian in 2024 at a state legislature level. This is District 75. Don't just believe what I say. Go investigate what I say. This district flipped from Republican to Democrat by 24 votes with 17,000 people voting in 2020. That's how tight it is between a Republican and a Democrat. It is just myself versus a Democrat incumbent in a presidential election year. Our models suggest that around 15,000 people will vote, and the election will be decided by just a couple hundred votes. We've raised around $22,000 to date. Our opponent is on track to raise $100,000, going from being unopposed until now. So she's opposed now. So the Democrat Party knows that she is at risk. You don't throw that kind of money at a state legislature race in Arkansas if you're not at risk of losing the seat. And so please, if you want to wake up on November 6th and say, hey, you know what? We didn't get a libertarian president. We didn't get one in the U.S. Senate or the Congress. But guess what? We have a libertarian elected to a state legislature seat. Please donate to this campaign. I'll do my part. I'm going to continue advertising a winning message, conducting myself with integrity, knocking on doors. MW4liberty.com/donate. We really need to raise around $3,000 as soon as possible. We're behind our fundraising goal. We have our first mailer to send out. And as we ramp into our 14 days of early voting that Arkansas is in their infinite wisdom has created, we have a ton of messaging at 1,000 miles an hour we have to do. So please, this is a winnable race. It's completely viable. It'd be the 6th time in U.S. history that a libertarian was elected as a libertarian. But the future of liberty depends largely on you. I can't do this by myself. I need your help. So please, MW4liberty.com/donate. And Angela, thank you very much for having us on here.
You are so welcome. Thank you to all of you guys. And for those of you who are candidates who I've spoken to about doing another fundraising live stream, we are absolutely going to do that for you. I'm going to try to do these at least once every other week leading up to the election to help you get out the vote, to make you feel confident, to get you practiced and well-versed in doing outreach and making the ask. We need to get better at asking for donations. If you are a candidate in the greater Swamp, DC metropolitan area, I want you to come out for Rage Against the War Machine and Rescue the Republic. It is going to be a 2-day event, September 28th and 29th. It's an excellent time to get exposure. There are going to be a lot of independent and swing voters there, people looking to connect with you, people looking for political leadership. Let's lead them towards liberty. Let's guide them in the right direction. Let's get the message out, and let's get you some exposure and donations and voter registrations and all those great signups. And last but certainly not least, if you are not a member of the Libertarian Party yet, please join lp.org. We want your membership. We want your support. We need your voice. Good night, everyone. And of course, we will go out on a frozen Angela because that's just how my luck is. All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Thank you so much.
Good night, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.